Welcome to the Nehemiah Entrepreneurship Community Podcast. I'm your host, Patrice Sage. I'm here today with a personal friend, a good friend, a champion for this ministry and many around the world, and the CEO and chairman of James Investment. Barry, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, great to be with you, Patrice.
We and Barry, we did a series with you before that was very popular, where we walked our audience through your book, which addresses your guiding principles. We're going to have to redo that because a lot of people enjoyed it, and I want to redo it in a new platform so that we can push it out throughout all the podcast channels. And so Barry has written a book. Barry, before we get into the meat of this, your father started the company, and you took over after your father, worked with him for a while. Unfortunately, your father has passed, and so you're now the new chairman and CEO. Your mother's still alive, by the way, so I'm sure she's the real chairman at the end of the day. First, how does it feel to be a second generation company?
Well, how do I feel? I feel as if I'm inadequate to do all that my father has done. Although I would tell anybody that's in business, generally the person that preceded you could do things perhaps that you cannot, but you can do things that they cannot. And the person after me will be able to do things that I could not. So it is just kind of the way that things progress. And hopefully, we'll be able to keep things rolling along as you will in terms of our company.
Awesome. On the James Investment website, jamesinvestment.com, you can get a little history of this great company that's based in Alpha, Ohio. You have to mean to go to Alpha. You got to be intentional to go there. So James Investment was founded in 1972 and is located in rural Alpha, Ohio. And their culture is deeply rooted in the belief that successful investing comes from doing their own proprietary research. That's kind of how the key competitive advantage, I would say, in business. Their discipline, investment discipline, has guided them through many difficult markets, through a long history, and they remain confident it will continue to do so. In a space that is often changing due to external factor, James Investment created a model, if you will, that makes the investors comfortable in knowing that whatever happens on the outside, they're not going to change because of the fact they don't just change with the winds. Barry, we've talked before. This idea sets you guys apart, right? You don't move based on how Wall Street moves. You kind of try to set the direction. Let's talk about that. What's been key to that? What's your secret sauce in having this internally guiding principle?
Well, one of the things they found in studying investment advisors is that those that are far away from Wall Street in the end wind up performing better than those that are on Wall Street because they're not affected by the herd. And the herd is like lemmings. It can take you right over the edge if all you do is follow it. So we're out on 35 acres in the middle of the woods, and it's a nice quiet setting in Ohio. Not many people have heard of Alpha. Population, I think, of less than 500. So we're out there, and we think that helps with our thinking and to be independent in our thinking. And that's always critical to have that ability to think contrary to the crowd. And all of our work is based on how do you reduce the risk without eliminating the potential to make money. And again, following the crowd is not always the best way. For periods of time it works, but then when it doesn't work, it can really get you into trouble.
Barry, you also are often featured as a special guest on CNBC, where you provide insights for the nation. So you must be a contrarian there, providing off Wall Street insight to an environment that tend to follow Wall Street. And so let's talk a bit about that. How is this message received in places like CNBC? And as you propel this nationally, how does the rest of the nation receive it, particularly Wall Street?
Well, I like to say it's a I'm a man out standing in my field, and there I am standing right now out in the field. It's interesting. They want different points of view. And again, we don't necessarily follow the mainstream in our point of view. And often we, being where we are in the Midwest, are able to explain things in ways that maybe are a little more understandable than those that are really talking at a high level. And that's the key, I think, is translating all of this, financial terminology and so forth into ways that can communicate well with people and hopefully help them. That's my whole goal whenever I'm on TV, is to leave people with something that would help them with their own investments.
I love it. Barry, I know that the audience is asking the question to be a believer, because many of our audience are entrepreneurs from all over the world. A believer, firm in your faith, leading a company with several $1 billion under management, being on national television, kind of doing all that you do. How do you do all that while staying rooted, not allowing the success or the money? How's your family done it without letting that take over your head? Remain true to who you are as a Christian.
That's a great question. I would say a lot of it has been that, you talk about being an overnight success after 30, 40 years, and almost all entrepreneurs know exactly what I'm talking about. It's just been through, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears through the years, through the peaks and the valleys, as there were along the way. And that keeps you humble. And this business, the investment business, is especially humbling because nobody can erase your mistakes. They stay with you forever and a day. So it is humbling in that sense. And the one good thing, whenever you're looking at money, you have to decide whose money is it, how much is enough, and is the next steward being prepared? Those are three things you have to do. And how much is enough? Fortunately, growing up in kind of, maybe middle class in the United States, money was never a key component in my life. It's more of being successful and serving people, the example my parents both set. So yes, we've had some success, but again, it's not necessarily something that's overriding within us. And as much as we can, we want to give 10% of our profits go to charity. And my family, my mother, my brother, and my wife and I are pretty dedicated to trying to make the world better than what we found it as.
And that you do. We are, Nehemiah Project is a beneficiary of your generosity, and we'll get into that because you challenged us. You've come alongside us, not just us, many organizations, Christian movie productions, and many other groups that and even in moments where your business were not doing so well, your generosity did not cease. That's to be commendable, and we'll talk about that. Talking to Barry James, the CEO and chairman of James Investment. We're talking today about COVID-19 investments and job creation. We're going to try to give you some free advice. Those of you guys facing the pandemic, we have the expert right here. The question is, should you invest in the midst of this pandemic? How should you invest? How do you think about it from an investor and entrepreneur? And by the way, I'm going to convince Barry to come back later because I want to do a series that we did with him before around his book, which was a great series where we can kind of help to give us some guidance. And so we're going to do that. But today you're going to get a little tidbits on that. And then we're going to deal with job creation. Barry has been gracious enough. First, he challenged us. I remember that December, that phone call, as we were reflecting about the next decade for us. And literally our 100,000 job mandate came from this man right here. So everybody can blame him for it in terms of this particular mandate. But it's been great for us. It's centered everything we do. That's the one number that we measure, no longer about how many businesses we create, but how many jobs they create. And we have a goal to do 100,000 within 8 years. With that said, so Barry, there was a time in your journey where you didn't think business was for you. You were actually on a trip in Africa, where, as a matter of fact, my latest book. You're gonna get a copy soon, by the way. There's a copy coming to you. In here, I talk about your story. I have a little paragraph about your story. You, your heart was to do it all for the kingdom, to just serve God, and you thought Africa was it. And the Lord reminded you of what more you could do, where right on that seat, that pulpit you have right there, and how much more good you can do from that pulpit, that is not less than the missionary pulpit or the pastoral pulpit. You made a decision that today we and many others benefit from. Take us back to that moment, Barry, and talk about that moment and how you came to conclude that Africa was not it, that Ohio back there working with mom and dad and being prepared to take over, that was the place.
Well, I'd hardly ever gone on a mission trip before, but my pastor took me over to Mozambique, and going out into the villages and showing the Jesus video and preaching the gospel and healing the sick. That was the plan. And I saw there things I had never seen before of, the blind seeing, the deaf hearing, and the paralyzed getting up and walking, and children who had been malnourished and malformed seeing their legs straighten out and actually walk for the first time in their lives. That really impacted me. I mean, it sounded crazy to me because I had never seen that before in my days as a Christian. So that really gripped me, and I saw the impact that they were making in this northern province of Mozambique, and there were just thousands upon thousands coming to the Lord, whole villages, and a lot of these were actually Muslim villages, because that's where kind of the Islam came into northern Mozambique. So anyways, I wanted to go, so I went back 2 more times, and the last time I took my family, and that wasn't the greatest of trips. It was kind of difficult. Of course, a lot of things in Africa are difficult. And when I got back, I was really at the point of trying to make a decision about, doing that full time with my life. And I heard pretty clearly from the Lord, no, I've got you right where I want you. And it was a bit surprising to me because at the time I felt, well, I'm making rich people richer when you're dealing with investments. How is that, And yet it took me a while. And then I met folks that are in the Kingdom Advisors group, and they showed me how you can, really express, your faith in your work and influence people for the kingdom in that way. And also, at the same time, meeting folks like you and some of the folks at the Timothy Plan and whatnot, and seeing lots of different pathways that you can have an impact on the world right where you are. So for now, I'm still here, and every year I've asked, is this the time when I can leave? And the answer has not changed up to this point in time.
Wow. And because of that, Barry, many of us are blessed, because essentially where you are, you don't just minister through your financial giving, but also I've seen the impact you had on your employees, the impact you have in your local church, and the impact you walk alongside those of us who you give to, the impact you've had in many others, and your story is an inspiration. So, Barry, let's talk about COVID-19. As you know, the globe went through a once-in-a-generation's pandemic. I'm not sure what we can compare it to. So, as a money manager, tell us a bit. So, give us a bit about how do we process what happened in terms of the market investment from where you sit in helping. We are clients. So first of all, how should we process this incident that just occurred from an investment perspective?
That's a really good question. And there's a lot of times I wish we'd done it better, to be perfectly honest. As it turns out, when it really sprang to fullness here in the United States was March of 2020. And nobody really knew just how much it was going to impact us. We closed down the economy in a lot of ways. A lot of people lost their jobs. 20 million people lost their jobs. Tens of thousands of businesses closed their doors. And the stock market took a huge dive. A lot of it because of uncertainty, and a lot of it because they didn't know what would happen with earnings. There was a pocket in that area that actually did quite well, and those were large technology companies that would deliver things to your house. They call it some cases the digital economy. So those did very well, while the rest of the stock market did poorly. And people thought maybe that would continue to do well because interest rates were so low. And it just kind of wiped out smaller companies, took a big beating for companies that were more of a value play than a growth play. So it was very difficult for a lot of investors. And last year we saw the widest variance between the very high growth companies and the value companies that I've ever seen. It was over 30% difference in returns. So very, very bifurcated, if you will. What we're seeing now as we're recovering is what we thought would happen. We put out a special analysis of the market, our economic forecast. We have it in a short version and a longer version, and they're both available on our website, jamesinvestment.com. But within that, we thought that the economy would recover, and that would be very good for companies that are more of the value, more of the small, more cyclically oriented, and maybe not quite as much for those technology companies. So that's been the move that we've made in our clients' portfolios gradually. And we don't think that the Apples of the world are going away by any stretch of the imagination, but the prime opportunities are in a different part of the market, and we think that could work out very well this year.
I love it. So for our audience who are not as sophisticated, Barry, you used two terms, value and high growth. Could you break those two down for us? What does that mean when you say value versus high growth?
Well, do you want the fancy Maserati, or do you want the real stable, dependable Toyota? And the Maseratis of the world are companies whose growth in terms of the size of the company, in terms of their earnings, is at a very high level. And on the value side, you have companies that are trading relative to other companies at much lower than normal or much lower than market ratios based on their earnings or the value of the book value of their company. So they're two different ways of approaching the market. Not one is right or one is wrong, but historically the value approach has been the best, just because there's not as much to lose in that area. They're already cheap, whereas the very expensive companies in the growth area can definitely cause more of a downturn when stocks do turn down.
Oh, I love it. So in a sense, I like that analogy of the Toyota stable, dependable versus the Maserati, because the idea is that buying something that in the long term is going to do well versus something that with the short term, but you're not sure about the long term, and the losses there can be drastic.
Right.
Wow. I like that. So with that then in mind, Barry, so what does James Investment do? And who does it serve? So I'm watching and listening. I want to know, okay, wow, good knowledge for what does the company do and who does it serve, so I can see if I fit in that profile.
Yeah. Well, we have three different divisions. One is kind of the retail side, as low as $50, but generally a couple $1,000s. And that's our mutual fund group called the James Advantage Funds. Then we do at about $100,000. We have separately managed, and that is through other advisors, and we just do the portfolio management. And then we have private clients, typically about $1 million or more. So we have clients in each of those areas. And my dad, at the very beginning, back in the 70s, he said, if you have $50 in your back pocket, we'll manage it. And we've actually managed to recreate that. And I've got a friend of mine from college 40 some years ago, and he's starting one of those. So we call it the 50-50 plan. So you just put $50 in a month, and you can get our management of your funds.
So hold on. So you telling me that I have two girls and I've been trying to find an easy way to teach them about investment. So if I do a Zoom call with my girls with James Investment, you can show them how to start putting $50 a month aside and have a mutual fund.
Yeah, yeah. We have
Hmm.
very aggressive funds. We have very conservative funds, and all of that information is available on our website. But it's a way to get into a diversified portfolio of stocks with a consistent approach. And any approach works sometimes and doesn't seem to work other times. But as long as you stay consistent, it will work. As long as there's some sense behind it, some logic behind it, isn't just some crazy wild idea.
Would you say it's a good way to teach children? I mean, because $50 is good to teach children about investing, and so that way they can kind of see how it works. Is that a good tool to use for that?
I think so. My dad bought us some stock. This is many, many, many years ago. My brother and I, and every year we would get a dividend check, and it might only be $2 or $3, but we sure liked that check coming in, and I think we'd find ways to spend it. But yes, when you think about money and stewardship with children, one of the most important things for anybody to learn is don't consume all that you bring in. So, if you can do that and put some aside, then it can really be of a big help when there's a major need in your life, or an emergency, or if you're going to buy a car or a house or something, you've got some funds there available. So it's very important, and I believe that you give 10% to the Lord first, and then you pay yourself second. And I start trying to get to 10% or more over time, putting it into savings, and that's just what I've done for my whole life, and it seems to have worked fairly well.
I'm gonna do that for my kids. So I'll be reaching out. That's a good
Good.
idea. So Barry, let me ask you this question then. So we have our YBE program, the Young Biblical Entrepreneur. We're
Yeah.
about to launch it online. So could we have James Investment to teach those kids about investing using this $50 model, whether they invest or not, at least they can kind of see, is that possible that we can do a virtual call with someone from your staff to kind of teach them about investing?
Oh yeah. When I developed that book, it was really my daughter's school had been given some money in the 8th grade, and they were asked to actually manage it, to get some, to try to grow it over time. And so that was what I developed as kind of my teaching plan, to tell them, how to do it. And the most important thing is not to lose the money that you start with. I know that makes perfect sense. But that was my idea, was how do you avoid some of the major mistakes when you're in investing? And those are really how we try to approach those 7 timeless principles. And, anybody can really do it. And, you match your investments with yourself, which is the most important thing, so that you can stay with it for the long term.
Well, we're going to incorporate that in YBE. That is a smart idea. So you mentioned the principles. I'm going to have you back to go through them, but just give them, what are the principles real quick? Just guys, listen to the principles, and we're going to deal with another part. So give us the 7 principles, because you mentioned it, Barry. What are they real quick?
Well, the first thing is know yourself. Make sure you invest according to who you are, not how everybody else is investing. Don't lose your money. Stay with your winners, sell your losers. I know that sounds kind of silly. You want to be diversified. You want to give time, for the proper length of time for your investments. And, kind of the bottom line is you want to go in knowing when you're going to get out. So knowing when to sell is much more important than what to buy. So those are just some of the principles that I talk about, and I have kind of a worksheet in there that folks can use to help them, apply those to their own investments. It's a good approach for the novice or someone who's just trying to get back into investing, just to try to get them, moving forward, which can always be the hard part.
I love it. So Barry, let me ask you a question on the podcast here. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Do you mind if we turn that into a standalone course for our members? Those
Sure.
7 principles, that'd be great. I mean, that could be a great value that we can provide our members so that every member of the Nehemiah Project have the opportunity to go through that on demand and with the book to learn the basics of investing.
Yeah, the world is offers different types of investment opportunities, and there are applications from this across the world. Maybe some of them don't translate to some environments, but getting the basic idea about investing and how to avoid losing money and things like that, that applies to absolutely everybody.
I love it. Guys, we're going to keep you posted. So here's what we're going to do. When we have Barry back to kind of talk through those principles, we'll get our course development team to prepare so that we'll translate that into the course. That way you guys can go through as a self-study within the community. Again, we're talking to Barry James, the CEO and chairman of James Investment. It's a company that has multi-billion-dollar management. That provides investment guidance and manage money just from a very different approach, not the Wall Street approach, an approach that's about long-term preservation and about setting yourself apart and being contrarian. Barry, your whole philosophy was developed from a PhD work that your dad did.
Yeah.
Tell us about that so that those of us who are there in school and so forth, they can realize that from a school work, you can actually build a business.
Yeah. It's interesting. A gentleman, I think Mal Keel won the Nobel Prize, and he wrote a book called A Random Walk Down Wall Street, that you could not predict how stocks would do, how the market would do, and they all moved randomly. And my father, in his doctoral dissertation, which was supposed to be on statistics, looked at every stock from 1929 to 1960. And what he found were there's some areas of inefficiency within the market. And one of those, it may sound, maybe a little too simple, but a stock whose price is going up at a pace over a long period of time, at a pace faster than the overall market, is likely to continue doing that. And that's like, if you've got a great soccer player, you expect him to do really well, or she to do really well, on an ongoing basis, and they rarely disappoint in that sense. And that's the same way. So the idea, and this is one of our principles, is that, that's carried over all these years after Dad's doctoral dissertation, where he disproved that random walk, is that hang on to your winners and sell your losers. That's like gardening: water your flowers and pull the weeds. Don't do the opposite.
Wow, I love it. As a matter of fact, Barry, when I learned that from you years ago, that helped me to there's a principle now that we train our clients and our coaches, that success is not random, right? And we teach them that random is, so consistency is one of the keys to success. And that came from that. In other words, that if something is working, most likely it's going to keep working. Yeah. So as a result of that, figure it out at a small level, a working pattern, and then scale it up, versus trying to shoot big and never figure it out. It's about marginal progress. Yeah. And so that's the key principle. So that's helped me just in terms of business. Just figure out a model, a prototype that works, and then once you figure it work, the likelihood of it keep working is higher. But for entrepreneurs, we tend to shoot big. We are that, we dreamers, and so sometimes it's hard for us to embrace and accept marginal growth and progress. But in investment, you have to think that way, don't you?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I remember when I was playing tennis in high school, and the training I got was never change a winning game, always change a losing one. So if hitting to the backhand worked, just keep hitting to the backhand, and that's the way it is in business too. You got something that's winning. Yes, you may have to adapt and refine it over time, but just keep doing it that way, and you'll probably be successful.
Wow, Barry, I I know your family, so I'm going to ask this question. I didn't know your dad personally. I haven't met your brother, but I kind of know your family because I've been over your home, spent the night there, and so forth. You have a family of geniuses. I mean, you guys have the genius gene, period. And geniuses are often not great communicator. You like got the communication gift in your family. So kind of talk to us a bit about that because your dad was a genius from a scientific standpoint, but it was I never saw him present. Was he as the gift of oratory that you have? Did it come from dad, from mom, or you an anomaly in the family?
No, I'm no anomaly. All of them are very good speakers, and it's all about knowing your audience and gearing what you say to the audience itself. Because you can talk at a very high level and nobody understands you, and it's pretty worthless. So having the effort to make something so that in my case, I want people to say, "Oh, of course, everybody knows that." And if I've distilled this very complex thing into something that people say, "Of course," then I've really done what I intended to do. But my brothers are just geniuses at that. Maybe the genius gene skipped over me, but at least I got the gift of gab. And my father was very good at that. Although early on, mom would say they'd meet with a client and dad would talk, and the client would look at her and, "What did he say?" and she would interpret for him.
I love it. I love it. We're talking to Barry James. We're talking about COVID-19 investment and job creation. So Barry, we're still in the pandemic, though things are opening up. Vaccine is coming. There's some loosening by government. There's the last stimulus here in the United States of America. Let's talk a bit about now going forward. First, let's start with the stimulus package in the United States. Was it necessary? Too much? Too little? What say ye?
Well, we still have $1 trillion from the first stimulus that hasn't made its way through the system. And what we've seen is a incredible rebound in our economy. At the end of the last of gross domestic product here in the United States. And by the end of the second quarter, we'll be beyond that. So, the economy has rebounded at just an unbelievable rate. Now, the problem that we're faced is that there's still 10 million people that have lost their jobs and not gotten them back. 20 million were lost. We've gotten 10 million back. So there's still a lot of people without jobs. So that's the one side of it. The opening of the economy will be really good for 2021. I'm hoping it's going to spread across the globe as the vaccine. The vaccine is it's just a change maker. It really is. It is that silver bullet or whatever you want to call it that is making all the difference in the world. And as we come out of this, the areas that are coming out slower, they will wind up catching up in time. And this is if you'll pardon me, but one of the things that I've really noticed is the creation of new businesses is at a record pace in the United States. Even though there were so many businesses that were lost and so many jobs that were lost, there are a lot of people who have a talent, a skill, and they're taking it out on their own, hopefully with the help of the Nehemiah project. But, there are just amazing opportunities for entrepreneurs right now. And that is what is going to be the next phase. There'll be some of these giants, some of these Amazon and Googles that will come from that. And I think that, opportunity is just a very short distance away for people.
Isn't that incredible how that's entrepreneurship, that innovation often comes in crises and challenge difficulties. That's the entrepreneurship spirit. So Barry, so if I'm watching and listening to this podcast and I'm wondering, okay, how should I approach my investments going forward? What quick advice can you give us without breaking the law?
Well, the most important thing is to match your investments to yourself. A lot of people took some of the stimulus money. I have a friend that did that, and they started day trading in the stock market. And I consider that speculation, which to me is gambling. So my advice, don't gamble. Invest, which is for a long period of time, and put the odds in your favor. So that's the one thing I would do. A lot of people think it's very easy, and there's a lot of day traders and a lot of investors, but they're not old day traders and investors. They don't wind up staying around. And everyone I've ever known that did that has wound up giving up in the end because they wound up losing money. So that's the first thing is how do you avoid losing money, and don't try to play that day trading game. That's a loser's game.
I love it. Good advice. Let's talk about job creation. Barry, you would what we would call a kingdom philanthropist. You do it quietly, you do it away from the crowd, but you do it very consistently. A burden in your heart several years ago was this idea of job. Why was this so important to you? And how important is jobs to not just the kingdom, but to the global economy in general?
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy thing at a retreat once, and the idea came to me, and people started saying, well, how are you going to do that? You do this other business and so forth. And I had to think for a while, and well, I'll ask someone else to do it for me. And that's when the Nehemiah group came in, and you've picked up the ball and just more than run with it. Delighted in that. A job, we're pretty much commanded in Scripture to work, to provide for our families, and there's more than just providing, for the family. There's a sense of self-worth that comes from work. And it doesn't really matter whether it's what I do or what you do or someone else is maybe doing something in a more manual type of basis. They are all, dignified, and as long as they're, legal and ethical, then I think it's very good for folks, and they feel like they're not just contributing to their family, but to the world as a whole. And I think that's the way we were made to operate. It just fits with who we are as people.
I love it. So Barry, you're second generation of a successful family. Oftentimes, dad works very hard or mom works very hard. The children become entitled. What was the key to your dad? How did he ensure that work ethics, that his success didn't rob you guys of work ethics, and have you ensure that your success doesn't rob your children of it?
Well, my dad expected us to work harder than anybody else in the firm, and he didn't let up on that. But he was a very brilliant man in that he always tried to put people in positions where they would succeed, where their talents and skills were. And typically speaking, if you can find that match, then people will work hard in that area and give it their all. And my younger brother is more the research side. I'm more the marketing and the growth of the company side. So we each kind of found our own way, as it were. So I don't know if someone else would call me entitled or not, but I'm 64, so I don't know if I've achieved that entitlement yet or not.
I love it. I really love it. That's important, because this idea of job being the idea of self-worth and dignity and so forth. The challenge with many of us entrepreneurs is that our very success ended up robbing our children of that. Mm. And what I've seen with you and your dad, you guys have done well there. And there's that Midwestern value that's important. I mean, for our listeners and viewers' purposes, when we say that in America, what does that mean? So a James family growing up in the Midwest is a little different than a James family growing up in California. What's the difference there, Barry?
Well, there's a lot less flash here. I know people that are millionaires and they're driving, old pickup trucks or something like that. They're not showing their wealth off. it's a lot of farming communities, and there's great wealth in a lot of with a lot of farmers with the land and so forth that they have, and we have some of those as clients, in fact. So it's just you're supposed to work hard and take care of your family. That's I don't know that that's much different from the whole country, but in some areas in California and the like, it's how quickly can I make money in Silicon Valley and sell my business and that sort of thing. And it tends to be a little more drawn out here. We start and then we build over time. And almost all of our clients, they built the wealth in their lifetime. They didn't inherit it. They built a business, put everything in it, and then maybe eventually sold it and got a tidy little nest egg. But I guess that's just kind of the way we build things, we grow things here in the Midwest, and that's just kind of the way it's always been.
I love it. Barry, as we prepare to land this plane, you've been a great champion of Nehemiah. We've adapted your job creation goal. That was your first gift to us, but it centered us. It really has. I mean, now all over the globe. As a matter of fact, I was meeting with a group of entrepreneurs today doing our group coaching, and we can count how many jobs they've created. We can, and they're all, everything for us tied to that. You've your time, this podcast, you speak for us often, and God willing, now we'll do this course together so that our members can have that knowledge of investment. You've also given your treasure. You've hosted me and even one of our staff members in your home. What is it about Nehemiah that has won your heart so much? And please continue. We appreciate it. But what's the thing for you that has really that has led you to be passionate about the mission of the Nehemiah Project?
Well, back in the financial crisis of 2008, I tried to create a business called Mr. Micro Business, which was to be an online, there are a lot of people doing it now, but an online kind of take people through a business plan and give them some money to start their business. And it was an abject failure. And I gave what was left over of the money in it to the local university, and they started a Shark Tank-like competition, which we're still going to have one here in April. But anyways, it's just kind of something within me that folks that are entrepreneurs are a unique breed of people. And when I met you, Patrice, finding out that you were taking entrepreneurship from a biblical standpoint was just it just circled right into my heart as to, wow, this is something that is important to me, entrepreneurship, but here's another way to go about it. And that is more focused on the kingdom, as it were. So I'm very, very pleased with what you've done. You have a dynamic team, you're a dynamic leader, and you've just taken it one step after the next. And I just love the expansion internationally, and the success, like in Kenya and other places, are just very inspiring to me. And this this effort that the team is making on these jobs is just the culmination of a dream I've had for years and years, and I'm very, very thankful for that.
Thank you so much. So those who are watching and listening, I promised Barry, I don't know how old he's going to be after that. That's going to be your birthday gift on that year, that we will give him a bouquet to say, here are the number of jobs that have been created. As a matter of fact, Barry, the producer of this podcast, who's now a contractor, he managed our social media. He's a product of your investment. He's now Kenji, text for me. How many employees do you have now? He was a startup, and now text how many employees you have. And now he has, and Nehemiah itself, we now have close to 30 employees as well.
Wow.
And Barry, you know this, but you know but you don't know the implication. Last year, I reached out to you and met. Kenji now has 4 employees. He's created 4 jobs since it's been 3 years. I think 2 years, 3 years, right, Kenji? And we outdoor Kenji since 2019. And I told Kenji, I said, Kenji, as long as you keep being faithful, we're gonna grow with you. And we were his first international client. And one of the ways that we try to, as biblical entrepreneurs, grow the things that we need ourselves, we outsource as well we can. Just like you outsource job creation to us, we outsource to other people. And during the pandemic, he was able to sustain because we, by the grace of God, sustained. But last year, Q1, before the pandemic, I reached out to you. I said, Barrett, we need your help. Would you mind making your gift early this year? And you prayed about it. The Lord released you to do it. I want to thank you, my friend. We didn't know a pandemic was coming. I always try to play it safe. I'm a risk taker, having no clue. Brother, you preempted our failure, my friend. So thank you for that. God used you. We had no clue. I was thinking about another problem. I had no clue that problem was going to be coming. So as a result, we were not desperate. And we were able to ride through, and by the grace of God have grown. It wasn't easy. Our top line reduced, but our bottom line, it grew because the changes we made felt right to the bottom line. Thank you for that. Well, we've come to the end of our time with Barry, but before, I'm going to have Barry give us some closing words of encouragement. We're going to have him back, though, because I do want to redo what we did with him years ago for our new audience so that you might be blessed. Oh, there's James Artry. He's a praise God. Yeah, James is incredible. It's really incredible. James is one of our leaders here in the region. He's an entrepreneur, gone through BE as well. Left his job now full time. He does ministry around the Pacific Northwest. All things go through James in our marketplace here. So, James, thank you for all you do. So before we have Barry give us our word of advice, I do want to do a little commercial. So if you want to know more about Barry James and his company, go visit them at jamesinvestment.com, jamesinvestment.com. There you can learn about their investment philosophy. You can see some of his interviews with CNBC. You can learn about their various products and services. Of course, they only do business with American investors. Those are the United States. We're not yet there where we can do that kind of stuff. I don't know, right? I mean, all you guys, it's really Americans. You can't do business. Non-Americans cannot invest. Or can they, Barry?
If they have an American account, then we can manage it. I have some friends down in Honduras who've opened up accounts here in the States.
So if you have an American account, I know those of you guys are going to email and say, "Can we?" No, you have to have an American account or be in America. But go to their website, see a kingdom company that is led by a kingdom guy that has been successful, not in his second generation, and Barry's working on the third generation. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, I want you to share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your family. Those who want to hear about COVID-19, how to navigate it from an investment standpoint, about the importance of job creation, want to hear the story of an inspiration story about a kingdom entrepreneur who is leading not only his company, but also using the platform God is giving him as ministry. So share that and encourage others as well. Also, if you want to know more about how we can come alongside you and help with your business, either you have an existing business or you just have an idea, visit our website, NehemiahEcommunity.com. NehemiahEcommunity.com. There you can learn about our training program, whether it's biblical entrepreneurship, identity and destiny, or whether it's serve and love. You can learn about those courses, how it can help you with your business. And soon we're going to have the investment course. We're going to create a little mini course with Barry on investment. So you can kind of get a little sense of how to use these timeless principles to invest either in your country or in the United States. Also, you can learn about our coaching program, how we have certified coaches who are kingdom minded, who can come alongside you and walk with you to grow your business. One thing to learn, but it's another thing to walk it out. Sometimes coaching helps with that. Also, you can learn about our Access to Capital, which is a program that Barry has been instrumental in helping us with, where we have our own fund where we can provide you with capital to help grow your business as long as you qualify. Also, we can connect you with a network of investors that can help you as well. They're looking for kingdom impact. That's why they want to invest in your business. Also, you can learn how to become a member of the e-community. The e-community, we now have over 1,000 members, over 1,000 entrepreneurs from Asia to Africa to Europe to Latin America, North America. And soon the platform will be in French, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. So it's a community, you can meet other entrepreneurs, connect with them as you grow your business so you don't have to go at it alone. Membership has its benefits. So become a member, join us so that together we can transform the world. With that said, Barry, our last advice. So, as you know, many entrepreneurs around the world, around the nation, have had a tough year. And you gave us a very optimistic message today, say it's going to be well. But so, what last word would you say as they're listening and watching, and they're just looking for that last other bit insight that, as a reminder, is going to be well with them? What advice would you give them, Barry, to hang on and stay the course?
Well, there's two things. One, in the early days of missionary work, there were doctors and hospitals and schools and things of that nature that really were the pathways into countries to spread the good news. Now it's business. It's a global world, and there's business across all boundaries. Whether you could get into some countries or not, you can get into them on a business basis and have an impact on lives. So those that are in business, don't think that you're out of the realm of mission work. You can definitely have a major impact across the globe. And the other thing that I would say is, it's lonely at the top. I know that sometimes making decisions that affect people's lives is very hard to do. And I just say that the Nehemiah team is there to help you through those, and to get you through some of that loneliness that comes with it, and some of that hard decisions. Sometimes just having someone who says, "Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense," gives you enough to go ahead and go forward with something that you've been struggling with for some time. So a great resource, use it, and want the blessings on all of you to fulfill the destiny that you were made to fulfill.
Oh, well said, Barry. Thank you so much for that advice. And by the way, as Barry's sharing, many churches are recognizing what Barry's sharing. We're partnering with Bethel Church. Barry, I know that your wife loves Bethel Church. We're partnering with the Heaven and Business School. I'm going to be at one of their conferences coming up, partnering with them to make sure, with Manor House here in Portland, Oregon, with Elevation Church. So many churches who are recognizing the importance of what you just said, and equipping their entrepreneurs, their marketplace leaders, to be able to minister wherever they are. Thank you for the advice. With that, let me say a prayer for you. We are going to have Barry back, so be on the lookout for that. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord enable you to steward those talents that are under your care, and to steward them in such a way that one day you'll hear those wonderful words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." See, like Barry's dad, you've been faithful over a few things. Guess what? He'll now make you ruler over much, despite the pandemic. God bless you. Have a great day and a great week. Thank you again, Barry, for being with us.
My pleasure.